Let's go with the granny vlog. Is that a Supra? Who did it? Come on. Good one.
Let's get right into this. On the KZ650, we're going to be rebuilding the accelerator pump. Got the kit from Z1 Enterprises, the K&L stuff. See if you can see everything in the kit here. The diaphragm, there's springs, some small bits, so we are going to have to be careful to not lose anything. There's your part number. Okay. We got to pull the carbs off again. I will very quickly run through this because I've done it like 6 times on camera. We got to pull the tank off. First things first is to disconnect your fuel lines, and it's our big one here. And then we've got to pull off our vacuum line there. The tank pushes up and then slides back, and set it aside. Once we get that set aside, we got to look at the top of the carbs, and we'll cut back to that. Now that that is done, we're going to do the throttle cables. It's a 10mm nut, and I always loosen the top one on both the return and the pull cable, just to try to keep my adjustments from being messed up too much. As you can see, I've got very minimal play in the cables, if I can hold still enough. And we're going to remove those. They come out really easy. Once you back these off, you move the cables, the bolt that's on the cable out of its holding, and then you can move the pull dog out of the bottom of the whatever you call them, and that's the throttle cables. Next thing are these boots that we've got to remove, and all you really have to do is pull these little springs. Of course, this one's stuck. Every time they're stuck when I do this on camera. Like this. Pull these off. I always go in through the airbox and pull the entire boot into the airbox, so I have plenty of room to maneuver the carbs and get them out of the holders. And we have to remove the Phillips screws you see there on all 4 of the holders to get the carbs loose. And then just like that, we've got the air filter out. We'll set it aside since we're doing this real time. And I'll show you how I do one of these boots. A hair dryer or a heat gun on its low setting makes these much more flexible if you're working in the cold. I do not have a heated garage, even though it's a sealed garage. I have my heater running, so these are still a bit stiff. They're a little bit stiff, but there we go. As you can see, I just pull them off into the airbox like that. All 4 of these we're going to do the cables, and we're going to remove these, and then the carbs just pull off this way, and we're going to cut back to being on the bench. This is the bottom of the carbs now that they've got pulled up on the bench here, and we will be replacing the diaphragm in here and the springs and pins and everything. So I think I want to readjust this because this seems like it's always on a little bit, and this is the activator rod, and not all of the KZ650s have this. These are VM22s, I believe, Mikuni VM22s, and they do have the accelerator pump. And depending on which model you have, whether something's been swapped or not, the ones that have the accelerator pump are very, very noticeable with all of this on the bottom of the number 2 carb. So really quickly, it looks like we need to back off this adjuster because, like I said, I think I'd like to readjust it to whatever the factory spec is. I'm able to take very close note at way it's currently adjusted in case that is what factory's supposed to be, just so I can put it back. And I'm hoping this is as simple as it looks. There's 3 Phillips screws here, 4 here, and we back all these off and start seeing what's inside. I would suggest being very, very careful as you take these apart, because there's lots of springs and pins and O-rings inside. So let me get one of my better screwdrivers and let's get into this. I decided to take the float bolt off of the number 2 carb instead of try to do this on it, and I decided that in case something pops out or falls out, we might have to take this off anyway. And I thought it would be easier to manipulate the rebuild kit and everything if we could just straight up put it upside down. So to remove the carb, remove the 4 screws, bolts, Phillips screw head bolts off the corners. And to remove the shaft, you can just unscrew this from where it is clipped on to the throttle arm, whatever you want to call that. So be careful with your gaskets. These are old gaskets on all my float bowls. I just have not changed. So I can already see part of what we're going to be replacing. We got to remove this clip here. And let's see if we can. This clip here and that copper piece is in this rebuild kit, and there's a clip, and there should be a ball underneath that. And yeah, there's the ball. We've got 2 different springs. These should probably go somewhere. One of them probably goes on this diaphragm, the other on this one. So before I take those out, I'm going to very carefully remove the 7 screws here that we already discussed. And obviously I did not touch this. So this is the inside of the first section. Why is this not focusing? Get your shit together, GoPro. I don't know why it's not focusing, but it's irritating the shit out of me. Anyway, so I can see there's a little bit of debris. If you've watched any of these videos, you'll know that this thing was sitting for a while and it had lots of crap in the carbs when I took all these off and changed everything. Anyway, so this is the underside in the first diaphragm. There is a spring under it. This will be the triangular shaped one, and there is a secondary hole right here so you can line up your diaphragm correctly. The push rod goes into that small hole, and the smaller spring clips on here. But I'm not going to change anything just yet. I want to fully take this apart. So we're just going to very carefully set this aside with our other parts. Up here, out the way, and I am going to get some carb cleaner and blow all these holes out and clear this. So let me remove this one now too. Okay, I've loosened those. Just take this off. Thought I had it loose all the way. Some gunk in there. It's cleaner than I thought it would be. There's the other spring. Well, definitely some gunk in here, but it doesn't look too bad. This is the outside, obviously, that sticks up into there. You can see the shiny part. That's where this lever presses against. It doesn't look bad. I was kind of hoping it would look a little bit worse. It does look old. I can see some dry spots in the cracks, and there is some gunk in it. So let me set this aside. out the way. And this is a spring that goes under that one. And there is, can you see that? That gunk. That obviously doesn't need to be there. Okay, that's gonna take some more carb cleaner to clean all this out. And last, it's gonna be this bit. Let's go ahead and just take care of that now. There should be more, isn't there? Maybe not. Ooh. I'm gonna have to hunt up some smaller needle nose pliers. Get your carb cleaner while we're going. We gotta start spraying some of this stuff out. I'm gonna go get a smaller set of needle nose pliers to remove this clip and get out the little rod and ball that are in there. Okay, got that clip out. Used my little babies. Got that out. I checked and cleaned all the passages. This one seemed a little clogged and I cleaned it. I just don't think there was enough wrong with this to explain why it's seemingly intermittently running out of horsepower above around 7,000, 8,000. It just seems to kind of run flat a little bit, like it's trying to run lean. The carbs all look okay though. I'm not sure. I was hoping maybe there was be something obvious here, but there's not. So we're just gonna keep going and rebuilding. The one thing that I cannot find is the O-ring. It came with an O-ring in the rebuild kit from K&L, and I have not seen an O-ring anywhere. I do not know where it goes. It can't go in here, so I'm going to replace these parts with the ball, the little brass shaft, and the clip, and get this part finished. And I'm probably going to Google around a little bit and see if I can find out where this O-ring is supposed to go. Try to find out where this O-ring is supposed to go in here. I'm just not sure. I don't see anything that would need an O-ring. Unless, is it possibly for the drain? Like, I just don't know where it would even go. So I'm gonna have to Google it and try to figure that out. I don't want to put all this together and figure out that the problem with it was missing an O-ring, and then have to take it all off again. So that's where we are right now. I'm gonna put these parts back in and figure out where that O-ring goes. The O-ring is right here. So that's where that goes. So we're gonna take that off and switch it out and continue on. We gotta keep making sure that all of our things are cleared out. I'm gonna keep spraying carb cleaner in each one of these. And before I put all this back together, I'm not gonna show it on camera. I am probably gonna remove all the other 3 float bowls and chase all of these small apertures where all the fuel's supposed to be going through, just to see if maybe I'm getting a clog there. But the only trouble I really had is getting the spring to set in here. It's a little bit bigger. Mine's a little bit off center right now, and I don't really want to try to center it because it's going to pop out of there. So that's the only thing that I would suggest taking care to do and making sure that you get that in there correctly. I'm liable to mess with a little bit more because my OCD is going to get to me, and put that back on there and tighten everything up. The one other thing I want to bring up is, I'm pretty sure I have this right. This O-ring that goes right here is a little bit big, but if I push on it, it centers on there. So it's the correct O-ring. It just hasn't been mushed. So take care when you do that as well. And I'm going to put this carb together, and then like I said in the previous clip, I'm going to take these off and clean them too, and then we're going to reassemble. Well, in the number 4, I noticed this on the float. You see that crack? What I don't know is if these are hollow, like they are on some of the old Suzuki 4-wheelers I've used, or if they're just some solid that's very buoyant. Not entirely sure. don't feel like Googling, so I'm gonna do an old trick that my dad showed me on how to temporarily seal a possible hole in a float. And I've got some old fingernail polish because my house is full of women, and I'm going to daub up over this crack, and hopefully you can't use so much that it weighs down the float, but hopefully it can at least seal this enough, and we'll have to see. I need to do a Google search to see if these are actually hollow or not. Don't know, but this is not an entirely good sign, I wouldn't think, especially since it looks like this whole side of the float could just break off. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm almost finished with the carbs to reinstall, and that's where we will actually, we need to look into adjusting this, because neutral on this is right here, and as you can see, in its neutral setting, that's a long way from connecting. So I think I need to back this off and give it as much slack as possible. But again, gonna have to start Googling some specifications. This is not in the service manual that I currently have. I have the Haynes, I think, shop manual, and it does not cover this that I've seen. So I did not film putting all this back together. I've already done it in other videos. I will put that video link in the comments of this. When I did the carb holders, the assembly is the same as it is when you put everything or take everything off. It's just in reverse. If you're working on these bikes, you probably know how to put all this shit back together anyway. I put it all back together. One of the things that I feel like I should remind, because I've made this mistake a few times myself and I felt like an idiot every time, get the vacuum line and the overflow line correct. Otherwise, your petcock won't work and you're gonna run out of gas. So your main gas line is obviously the fat one, and the line that goes furthest back in there, the one furthest away, is your vacuum line. Oh, there, my head was in the way. This one is the vacuum line and this one is the overflow. So make sure you get those correct. Or vent, I'm sorry, not overflow, vent. That's pretty much all there is to this one. This thing actually has very little gas in it. I don't even know if it'll start because it's got so little gas in it. It's late and I don't want to start it up tonight. I do think that I found the problem with why this thing is running so bad was the number 4 carb. The float has those cracks in the sides of it, and the float level is off, and I fixed all that. I'm probably going to replace all the floats in this. Now that I see one that's broke, I'm going to replace all of them and save them just in case something goes wrong and whatever. And like I've done with every video on this, I'm not throwing away anything I take off this motorcycle. I'm not cutting, chopping, or doing anything because it was all original when I got it, and I want to keep all the original parts original. I do not want to cut it up. I even saved the old coil packs that were blown in the old coil wires. I saved everything because I want it all to be with this, because I like that one of the special things about it is that it's an all original motorcycle. So I've got all that put back together. We'll probably have more videos again when I replace all the floats in this, and I'm going to go over again how to take all the carbs off again and put them all back on. So that's it for this one. Keep 2 wheels on the ground, everybody.
Come on, boy! Come on! Yeah!